Hi, I'm Pat, and welcome back to the channel. I've been receiving a bunch of comments and questions from subscribers and those that follow me on Instagram asking, what has your experience been like owning the BMW i8? There are several videos out there talking about ownership experience, but none that go into depth about some of the maintenance, some of the problems you may have encountered, what insurance is like. So that's what this video is going to be about today. Follow along. When I went to purchase the BMW i8, I had saved up money to buy a Corvette. But when I hit Car Gurus to shop for Corvettes, I saw this car coming up as a similar car. It was intriguing to me. I really thought having the doors go up were really cool, and at the same time I was going to get terrific gas mileage. I said, wow, this thing's practically a supercar. Well, as I did more investigation about the car, I learned about some of the interesting things that may come up and some of the problems that I may encounter with ownership. So I knew what I was getting into. But for some other people that are just tuning in now and may have an interest in purchasing an i8, this information may be helpful to you and may talk a little bit more about what your ownership experience may be like for the first year. So I dealt with a local dealer and I went to purchase a certified pre-owned car, CPO. So I wanted to find a car that still had about 6 to 12 months of warranty left on it, factory warranty, and another year of certified pre-owned warranty. And what that meant was that I could have almost 2 years of warranty, and that warranty would result in me reducing my risk if it came to any problems with the car needing an expensive repair. So I've had quite a few repairs done to this car, and that warranty and that certified pre-owned warranty actually went a long way. But before I get into that, I'll list some of those items out soon. I want to talk about what it was like to shop for the BMW i8. Now, I live in the Baltimore, Maryland area in the United States, and I traveled to Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and Northern Virginia to look at about 13 other BMW i8s. I really wanted to see what was available on the market. And for me, I wasn't worried about mileage. I was going to drive the car. I didn't want something that was going to be a show car, but I wanted something that I could easily just drive either on the weekends or some weekdays. So I wasn't looking for a particularly perfect car, but what I found was a lot of owners, and maybe these were leasees, people that had leased the car, didn't treat the cars as well as I expected. There was some damage in the front bumpers, there was curbed wheels, there were marks where they would get in and out of the car on the driver's and the passenger side. The seats were in bad condition, and these cars were under 30,000 miles and 3 to 4 years old. I was pretty disappointed in what I saw, and they were all certified pre-owned cars. So I did a lot of driving, I did a lot of talking with a lot of salespeople, and I ended up buying this BMW i8, this 2015 model, for several thousand more than I really wanted to spend. So there were several cars in the $70,000 price range. Now keep in mind, this is February 2019, and I was looking at a 2015 model year car. So that's about what they were going for. This particular car here was actually listed for a little bit over $80,000, and I didn't want to pay that much money. So we ended up negotiating down to $78,000. And to me, that was more than I wanted to spend, but I got a better car. This car was previously owned by the dealership owner himself, and it was well taken care of, and documentation showed that it had gotten the service that it needed. Now, when I got it home and I spent some time going over the car, washing it and detailing it, I found that some pieces of the car had actually been repainted. Now, typically that would bother me, but what I realized is after looking at the other BMW i8s out there, this paint is very thin, it's very soft, and it damages easily. So I wasn't too surprised to see that some of these panels had been repainted, and they were repainted properly. They did a good job. Overall, I was happy with the condition of the car, and I was glad that some of these pieces were painted. So great. I ended up with a BMW i8 that was practically new. It looked new, it smelled new, and I had to pay a little bit more than I wanted to. But I did get a car that I liked, and I did get a car that had that extra year of warranty. Now the factory warranty goes for 4 years or 50,000 miles, and then if they certify pre-own the car or CPO warranty the car, then they tack on another year, but unlimited mileage. And if you decide before your warranty runs out, your factory warranty, if it's a CPO car, you can then purchase a CPO wrap. So you could extend that CPO warranty beyond 1 year to either 2 years or 3 years. But that's going to cost you between $6,000 and $10,000 in the United States. Some countries overseas, it's relatively inexpensive. But here in the States, you're going to pay a lot more. Once I decided on the car that I wanted, I decided to go to my insurance company and say I want to insure the car. Now, since I had already saved up the money to buy the car, and yes, I pretty much emptied the entire bank account on the car, it took 10 years and pretty much all that money was gone. I didn't have to insure it at a higher coverage. So if you're going to finance the car, and even if you get a good rate, you may end up paying a lot more for insurance. Now my insurance costs about $100 a month, and I do have a lot of coverage, but I did increase my deductibles. So for example, if I'm paying about $100 a month or $1,200 a year, half of that is collision with a $2,000 deductible. That means if I get in an accident, I'm not, let's say the car's totaled, I'm going to receive $2,000 less than I would if it was a payout, or if it was $3,000 worth of damage, I'd have to pay for $2,000 of that. But if I would lower that deductible, that means that I have to pay more in premiums. So to me, I balanced the risk reward and decided it was okay to go ahead and have a higher deductible. But I also increased my deductible on comprehensive. I could get up to, I think it was a $2,000, but I went with a $1,000 deductible on comprehensive. And this means if a road hazard or a deer or something else hit the car, I would have to pay $1,000 deductible, and that covered, or that cost me about $200 a year for that. Now I also added a few other things to my insurance. I got through my insurer, Erie Insurance, I got the new auto security. That was $150 a year. What that means is if this car is totaled, they're going to pay me out for a 2-year newer car. So they would go out and look at 2017 model i8s and then figure out what that would retail for based on mileage, and that's what I would get back as a check minus my deductibles. So for another $150 a year, that was good insurance for me because these cars depreciate, and I'll talk about that again soon. Another feature that I got with this car is I paid for full glass. Now that was another, I want to say $100 a year. I don't have that on this statement that I brought up here on my phone that I'm looking at, but I went back to talk about how can I get better glass coverage, because my comprehensive only covered a $1,000 deductible, and if I needed to have my windshield replaced, because I did have to have my windshield replaced, and more about that later, it was beneficial for me to get full glass coverage and pay the extra amount that the insurance company required in order to 100% cover all the glass in this car. So I was happy with the insurance that I decided to pick up and the coverages that I had. I was okay with the cost of it, even though it was more than I wanted to spend. And at the end of the day, I felt okay driving the car home. Now, I'm the type of person that doesn't like to spend money. I will actually get buyer's remorse pretty quickly. And soon after I brought the car home, I said, I wonder if I made the right decision. It happens all the time, for me anyway. So I started to use the car more often. I enjoyed it. It was giving me the best gas mileage of anything I'd owned before. So if I'm able to get, back and forth to work 50, 55 mile to the gallon on a 35 mile round trip commute, that's great. And on a road trip, 35 miles to the gallon, this was an exceptional car for gas mileage. And it turned out that that's really one of the main factors that BMW wanted to accomplish with this car. The second, of course, was sound deadening in a quiet car, which I really don't like that much. But anyway, we'll save this for another video. After I bought the car, I started to have some issues. I did get a check engine light for an oxygen sensor, and I took it in to have that replaced. And I was also getting rebooting of the center console, the iDrive, where the GPS is at. It would reboot over and over again. Well, I went to the forums on the internet, both the Bimmer Post forum and the BMW i8 forum on Facebook, and other owners were telling me they're having the same exact problems. So when I took it in to have those things repaired, it didn't cost me any money out of pocket. But if this car wasn't covered under warranty, the list price for an oxygen sensor is $292, plus labor. The list price for a new head unit is $2,660, plus labor. So right there, that would have been, well over, $3,000, maybe $4,000, including labor. So immediately I was starting to see the benefits of the factory warranty. But I also took it in and I was complaining that the door skin, the leather inside part of the door, was starting to have a gap between the door and the leather. And I said, I think the clips are loose. So they replaced all the clips. Each clip was $3.50, and there are 48 clips between the two doors, plus labor. So I received the car back, and I'd been happy with it for a couple months, and then I got a crack in the windshield. Now, I had gone on the forums after I saw this crack, and I saw that 13 other owners had reported that they had the same exact crack in the windshield. It started in the middle of the top of the windshield, and as it came down, it split into a Y towards the doors. And there were 13 others that posted this around the world, and I collected all those pictures up and all those stories up of people saying, I don't know why it did this, it just did it on its own. I contacted the service manager, and he said, let me check it out. I have to talk to the regional manager. And then he got back to me and said, bring it in. If it doesn't look like it was impacted with anything, then we'll cover it. So he looked at it, he said there's no signs of impact, and they decided to cover the windshield replacement. So the windshield on this car lists for $1,500.42, so nearly $1,600. And when they replaced the windshield, they also replaced the rain sensor, which lists for $272. The rain sensor attaches to the inside of the windshield, and it has to attach with no residue on it. I want to say like anything that would impact its clear visibility. So when they take the old one off, if they can't get that coating on the top of that rain sensor to be exactly like it was before, they would replace it. So if you ever have to have a windshield replaced, you may end up needing a new rain sensor. So anyway, they took care of that. That lasted a couple days because they wanted to let the windshield adhesive cure, and I was like, great, take as long as you need. I don't want this problem to come back again. And it's a problem that's happened enough, but 13 cars out of 20,000 that were produced, it's a very low percentage. So at that point, is this going to happen to somebody else? I don't know, but it did happen to me. I also had the door struts replaced under warranty, and there's a link in the description below for me replacing the door struts again after finally owning the car. The door struts weakened up. Soon after I got the car, I noticed it. I didn't notice it when I was checking it out because it was in the showroom, it was warm, but once I got outside in the cold, the doors weren't staying all the way up. So they covered that replacement of the door struts under warranty. Those list at $99 a piece, plus labor, of course. So there are some other things that I had taken the car back in to have repaired, but these were after the factory warranty had already expired, and now I was covered under CPO warranty. So I had a deductible on this, and that was the turbo. The turbo does have some issues on the i8. Other people have had the entire turbo unit replaced. I needed a gasket replaced where the turbo would actually take air in from the airbox and then boost it up. That gasket in there was leaking. And what happens is that gasket prevents any type of oil or vapors coming off the engine that are being recirculated through the engine. It really prevents them from leaking out. So they were starting to leak, and that's what I noticed. There was a little bit of oil. So they replaced the gasket. That was a $16 unit. But I also had a low coolant warning on the iDrive when I was driving, but the coolant was actually okay. And link in the description below, I talk about lifting the hood and replacing the hood, and I mention this SIB for technical service bulletin for the low coolant problem. So they replaced that under CPO warranty, no issues, but the coolant reservoir would have been $132 and the cable would have been about $25. So I didn't have to pay for that. And there are a few other things that I put on the car. If I was to pay outright for windshield wipers, that's $73. I mean, I got them for less than that. I did have to do oil changes. I did 4 oil changes at $11 a quart, or $11 a liter. So 4 of those times 4, you can do the math, $25 a filter. Spark plugs were $29. I needed a $30 tool, so 29 times 3 for the spark plugs. The trunk lid, I did the pivot and the spring and the O-ring replacement. That was about 20 bucks. Overall, I would have spent, if I did not have any warranty, I would have spent $6,000 in parts over the past year. So going into this, I didn't know it was going to be that expensive. And of course, things fail. And for other people, they don't have any issues with their i8. It just happened that I had these particular issues. So it was about $6,000 worth of parts that were replaced at MSRP. And tire replacement, that's one thing that really surprised me. The tires on this car only last about 10,000 miles or so. So tire replacement, and there's a link in the description below on my review of the replacement tires that I put on this car that last much longer and give excellent drivability. Now, one thing that I didn't replace, or I didn't take it in, the boots that go over the shocks. They're fairly inexpensive, but to remove the shocks and replace them, it would cost about $4,000 for the labor to get the shocks off and replace the boots that cover the shocks. So they're deteriorating on almost everybody's car right now. It's unreal. I'm trying to come up with a solution for that, so stay tuned for a future video. But I want to have a DIY in order to replace these without having to take the shocks off. So, you know, looking at all the dollars that I had spent on the car, you know, that's, relatively speaking, that's some of the issues that you could run into with an i8. So I think I got my money's worth. That extra money that I paid for the car to have CPO warranty and in the condition that it was in, I feel really good after a year. I think I made the right choice. However, these cars depreciate. So a year ago, even though I paid $78,000 for this car, I put 17,000 miles on the car. I drove it everywhere. I drove it to work. I drove it to rallies. I drove it on vacations. I've driven a car probably more in a year with this than any other car that I've owned. And in that amount of time, getting, 40, 45 miles to the gallon on average, it's been great. But I also took a big depreciation hit. So right now, if I looked at 2015s in the same condition with the same mileage all over the United States, I could buy this car for between $60,000 and $65,000. So imagine if I wanted to buy this now, a year later, I would only have to pay $60,000 for it versus the $78,000 that I did pay. So that's $18,000, which works out to, for every mile that I put on the car, it took $1 of depreciation. Now, it just happens to work out that way for me. Even if I let the car sit and I didn't drive it, it may still depreciate the same amount. But if you think for every mile I'm going to spend $1 just on depreciation alone, and I'm going to spend 50 cents on parts, it looks kind of pricey. And honestly, it is not the best investment to buy one of these. I've learned that. So would I do it again? Yeah, I think I would. It's been a great ownership experience to have this car, but do I want to get rid of this one and buy another i8? Do I want to buy a newer i8 that has a longer warranty so I avoid the risk? I don't know. I don't know if I want to take another depreciation hit. especially if I have to trade this one in. I mean, those are retail prices. If I have to trade this car in, they're probably going to give me $10,000 less and hope to make that money up on a sale. And they may not know what they're getting into. So overall, it's been weird for me because I enjoy the ownership of the car. I enjoy the looks that it gets, the attention that it gets. It's really cool, great gas mileage. It is missing a little bit of that raw horsepower and that rawness that I used to feel with owning a Corvette. I'll admit that's a negative with the car. But for some of the different modifications that I made to the car, it's been really cool. Ownership experience has been really cool. People really enjoy the car. I love that it's a hybrid. It's my first hybrid. So overall, I'm pretty happy. But at the same time, you know, you see the eyebrows scrunching down. It's like, you know, why spend this much money and lose this much money on depreciation? Am I really getting that much more happiness out of it? And that's a good question. So BMW i8 ownership, you know, if you're a hardcore BMW fan and you love this car, this is your dream car, I could see you going for it and you eat the cost, and that's okay. For me, I wanted a Corvette. I still miss that raw horsepower, that feeling of a real engine under me. So it's kind of a hard pill to swallow to see the depreciation where it's at. But nobody knows where depreciation is going to go in the future. It's very possible that this car will appreciate, and if it does, great. If not, I have a decision to make when it comes to my ownership at the end of November 2020. I will no longer have a certified pre-owned warranty anymore. I'm going to be on my own. So what does that mean? I better have enough money in the bank for repairs. And if I don't have enough money in the bank for repairs, the car's going to have to sit until I make enough money for the repairs. Now, I'm going to have a future video, and if you're watching this later than I filmed it, it's already going to be out there, and there will be a link in the description when I finally do upload that video. But I want to talk about some of the things that you need to look out for when you're shopping for a BMW i8. And that information's not all going to be happy and positive. There are a few things that I've learned from the forums and from ownership that can be kind of scary for a BMW i8 first-time owner. So you'll have to stay tuned. So that wraps up this video. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to the channel and ring that bell for notifications. Please give me a big thumbs up. Thanks for watching, and happy motoring.